Drew you to the entertainment industry?
Wow. What a question. I think it was in the 4th grade. I did the Christmas play, and I wanted to play the lead of the young ice skating boy who gets the young ice skating girl. And I didn't get that part. I got the part of a Christmas tree with lights. I was lit up, so it wasn't that bad, but I was a Christmas tree. But even standing back there behind the 2 skaters, I realized that I liked being up on the stage in front of people. And from that time on, I think by the time I was 11 or 12, I had decided I want to become a professional actor. And, you know, not a movie star or any of that kind of stuff, just a good professional actor. That's what I wanted to be. In my junior high photo underneath, my aim was to become, my goal, to become a professional actor. So everything after that, in my head and the things that I did was all pointed in that direction.
So we know you from so many different things, Twin Peaks, RoboCop, things like that. What is maybe 1 or 2 things that you've done that people might not be so easily recognizable that you would like people to see?
Oh, well, yeah, some movies that I really liked, like Dead End, that I made, and another one called Digging Up the Marrow, that I liked very much, and a bunch of, I've done about 100 movies, so some of them I haven't seen myself. And a lot of them are horror-oriented, and I've played any number of bad guys. And I played a lot of good guys too, but I'm mostly known for my bad guys, I guess. I've been killed in every conceivable way. I've been burned, stabbed, shot. I've been beaten to death. Everything. And but I like some of the. I like the show I did called Reaper, where I played the devil on television. And that was, thank you. That was a wonderful experience to play Satan. The ultimate power trip. And I did a show here in Atlanta back in the middle 90s called Savannah. And we did that for a couple of seasons, and I enjoyed my time here in Atlanta. And we went 1 or 2 days down in Savannah. But we shot it mostly here in Atlanta. And yeah, and I like some movies that not too many people saw, like Good Night and Good Luck. George Clooney directed that one. And that got nominated for Best Picture Academy Awards. That was back in 2005. And so, you know, I've touched on greatness. I haven't dwelt there for long, but I've touched on it.
So I read a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, that you were considered for Freddy Krueger?
Well, Robert Englund thinks that that's true, but it's not. I think he and I made a movie in Romania together, and it was, what was it called? Wind? Can't think of the name of it now. But it was a gambling casino in South Carolina during a hurricane. So we shot it in Romania. And so there I was, Robert Englund and I were in Romania. We visited Castle Dracula. And somebody in the parking lot as we were going in said, wow, you got Leland Palmer from Twin Peaks and you got Freddy Krueger. They're going into Castle Dracula together. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We should take a picture. So a lot of people were taking pictures of us that day in the parking lot. But as far as playing Freddy Krueger, no. I did one of Wes Craven's first films called Swamp Thing. And that was right after Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, and then came Swamp Thing. And I think it's probably from that, our association then, where when it came time to do the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, that he was considering me to play Freddy Krueger, but then England walked in with that face of his. Then it was all over. I was a little bit too good looking, I guess, to play Freddy Krueger. Although I said, I can do this. But no, Wes wouldn't listen to me.
So let's talk about Swamp Thing a little bit. You didn't portray the Swamp Thing monster. How did that come about?
Well, actually, I did. I played Dr. Alec Holland, and the idea was that I would wear the appliance from the waist up, and I'd do all the close-ups with Adrienne Barbeau. And I did. I went through the makeup process every day of 2.5 to 3 hours to put on this Swamp Thing skin and the head and the false teeth and the contacts. And my appliance on my face was all glued down so that I had complete control of it. And you could even see me winking, my eyes or crinkling my cheeks, the Swamp Thing dimples. And it was a wonderful thing. All the close-ups went very well. But then when they looked at the dailies, they saw that it didn't match with this 6'5" stuntman who played the Swamp Thing running through the swamps, Dick Durock. And so they decided to scrap all those close-ups. And Dick did all those close-ups, and his appliance didn't fit quite as well as mine did. And you could see that it was coming off his mouth a little bit, and he had some holes in his leg, and it wasn't quite as nice as my outfit. But I don't know where that film is. Somewhere Wes had it, all those outtakes of me doing all the close-ups, and it was a beautiful thing. I wish I could see that in the film.
So there's a term thrown around, character actor. Some actors that I've talked to consider that a negative term. What are your thoughts on that term?
I think it's fine. Yeah, I think I was in a book called Character Kings, and I was flattered that they considered me, a good enough character actor to be in the book. And they had about 30 or 40 of us, I guess. And we play all kinds of roles, and we get a lot of the good dialogue. The leading men, they're not as interesting usually. Sometimes better looking, but not always. And we get all the good writing and the good stuff to do in the film. So no, I'm all for being a character actor.
You spoke that you mainly played villains. What is your favorite part about reading a script and being able to bring that villain to life?
Well, yeah, when I first read a script and I read the part and I see some of the things that the guy has to do, I right away think to myself, am I going to be able to do this? And will I be able to do it well? And when I answer myself, I don't think I can, that's when I know I have to do it. It's something, I guess, innate in my character, where if it's a challenge and I feel like I'm not going to be able to pull it off, that drives me, that compels me to do it. And so I remember playing Leland Palmer on Twin Peaks, that a lot of the stuff that Leland had to do, it was very difficult to do, and I would have to psych myself out and do a whole number of things off camera to try to get myself in the right mood to do that particular scene. And I remember particularly the scene that where Leland kills Maddie, and I smash her head into the picture on the wall, and I say she's going back to Missoula, Montana, and that's where David Lynch is from, by the way, Missoula, Montana. And I remember that scene that day very well, looking in the mirror and seeing Bob, and it was the reveal, and it was a big deal. And poor Cheryl Lee, who played Laura, she got killed by 3 different people that day. By me, by Richard Beamer, who played Ben Horn, and by the lovely Bob, who, by the way, was a wonderful guy, who was a prop man that David saw, and he was standing around the set one day, and I guess he dropped something on the floor, and he came up from behind the bed, and his head popped up, and David said, "Oh, geez, you could be Bob." He made him Bob. I remember Deputy Sheriff Harry, the Harry Goaz, who played Deputy Andy, the big tall guy, the sweet, kind of dense but sweet sheriff's deputy, and he drove David one day, and he was a chauffeur for a while, I guess, driving a limo for a limo company, and he drove David one day, and David liked his look, and stuck him in Twin Peaks. And that's the way David works. He works instinctively, and he likes a person immediately, or he doesn't. And if he does, there's a good chance you might end up in something that he does. I remember when I went in for my, I thought that it was going to be an audition for Twin Peaks, and I thought I was going in for Sheriff Harry Truman. I wanted to play the sheriff. I didn't even know who in the hell Leland Palmer was. I mean, I sort of remembered the name. I did read the script. It was called Northwest Passage, originally. I read the script, and so I thought I was going in for Sheriff Truman, and so I came in to meet David Lynch, and I sat down. We started talking. We talked about the first cars that we owned. Mine, believe it or not, was a 1960 Alfa Romeo convertible. That was my first car. I got it in 1965. I was 5 years old. Paid $1,100 of all my money that I'd saved up prior to that time. And it was a red convertible with a black top, and it was what I thought was a real chick magnet. And it worked a couple of times, I remember. But then it started falling apart, and I got rid of the car. Anyway, that was my first car. His was a Volkswagen Beetle, a Bug. We talked about that, and then we talked about an actor we had in common, who was our friend, his name was Kenneth McMillan, and he was the evil Baron Harkonnen in the Dune movie. And we talked about Ken for a few seconds, and that was the extent of my audition with David. And then I got a call 2 days later saying he wanted me to play Leland Palmer. And I thought, Leland Palmer? Wait a minute, who's this guy? So I had to go back in the script. And I opened it up and I looked at it, and okay, here he finds out his daughter's dead, and he drops the phone and he starts to cry. Okay, here he goes to the morgue, identifies his daughter's body, and he starts to cry. Here he is up in his daughter's bedroom, the sheriff's going through her bedroom looking for her diary, and he's sitting on the bed and he starts to cry. I thought, all this guy does is cry. And then it dawned on me, there are different ways you can cry. There are different grades of grief and sadness and levels, and I was going to try to explore all of them. And so I took it upon myself that was going to be the challenge, to be able to play Leland and play him full out and try to put some variety in it and make it interesting. And I think after I did, we did the pilot, and then we did the first 1 or 2 episodes, then I think they really started to write for the character, and they started to have me do even more and more outrageous things, dancing with myself and throwing myself on caskets and at funerals and that sort of thing. And you didn't, prior to that time in 1989, you didn't see that too much on television. In fact, I don't think, there's ever been anything quite like Twin Peaks on television. We had a different director every week. David directed about 4 or 5 of the episodes, but we had a different director for all the other episodes, and a lot of movie directors. Even Diane Keaton, I think, directed an episode. So we had a variety of people inputting, and but all of us, the Twin Peaks cast, we knew what we were doing, and we knew what we had to do, and we knew the mood that was set and the tone that we'd established in the show, and we knew how to carry it on from week to week. Didn't really matter who directed. We knew what we were doing, and it was a very rare experience. And did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
So talk about reprising your role for the new season, and what were your thoughts on the new season?
I was upset that I wasn't in it more, and because I had known, I knew deep down inside, probably for the last five years, that there would be another season of Twin Peaks. And I remember David, they were doing a tribute to David at the Orange County Art Museum, a lot of his artwork, and I was invited to the banquet and sat with David and his wife, and we started talking about the possibility of Twin Peaks coming back. And David said, well, Ray, you know, the town is still there. It's still there. And everybody's still in it. You're dead. But we can work around that. So I thought, yeah, he's really going to try to work around that. And he did stick me in the red room for a couple of little scenes, and had me talk backwards again. And he's a funny guy. He writes it out for me backwards on a piece of paper. He said, hand this to Ray. And I look at it and I have to say, find Laura backwards. And don't ask me to do it now because I can't. But that was my only disappointment, that I wasn't in it more. But I watched it, and certainly kind of groundbreaking television. Nothing quite like it. It's visually stunning. Visually stunning. And just the way David wanted it to be. As crazy as anybody else may think it might be, that was the way he wanted it to be. And so it was quite something, I think.
It seems with many of the things that David Lynch has done, he sort of gives you answers, but leaves you with 1,000 more questions.
Yeah, well,
is that really what he was going after?
Always, yeah. He doesn't think that there's really an answer for anything. I think it's he just enjoys seeing people trying to seek those answers, and he lives in the moment, and anything goes, really. So when you're doing a scene for David, you can try just about anything that comes into your head, and as long as he doesn't say, "Would you stop doing that, Ray?" You're okay.
So you played Leon Nash in RoboCop.
Right.
How did you get involved in that film?
I got called in again. I thought I was reading for the part of Murphy, the Peter Weller part, right? And I thought I would have been great as Murphy. No, they had me read this part with these other guys, and it was Leon Nash, and it was a bad guy part again, and Paul Verhoeven, he's that crazy Dutchman, and his favorite expression, you have to excuse my language now, but his favorite expression while we were making the film was, "Well, anyway, I suppose we are fucked." He would say that after many takes that we did, and sometimes we were actually, I guess, and other times it was going rather well. We destroyed this section of town, the town in Dallas, that they were going to tear down anyway. That's what they said anyway. And so we blew up that whole street with those big 50 millimeter guns that we carried around. And that street is still there in Dallas. That was 1986, you know, and they haven't torn it down yet, which I thought was kind of funny.
So I read that you guys were called back after the film was wrapped to film Alex Murphy's death scene.
Yeah.
Why did that happen?
I think it had to do with the making of the actual mechanical Murphy that we blew apart with our shotguns, and I think it took them a while to create it and build it, and it was ready to go. And we shot it down in a warehouse in Long Beach, California. We shot all of RoboCop in Dallas, Texas, and then outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And but that particular scene where we killed Alex Murphy was shot in a warehouse in Long Beach, and they had this mechanical Murphy with a head that looked so much like Peter you would have thought it was him, and I was only a few feet away from it, and it looked so real, and it moved, and it would grimace, and the eyes would move, and it was freaky. It was like you know, that exhibition they have at Disneyland or at Knott's Landing. I mean Knott's Berry Farm, Knott's Landing. Jesus, I was on that too. I played a recurring character, the cocaine dealer in town. And Julie Harris and I shared a dressing room. But that's a long story. Yeah.
So this film was a little bit more physically demanding for you. Was there anything that was more challenging for you than other films?
A RoboCop you're talking about? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. But we were having a good time. The bad guys, you know, we were just tearing it up and loving it. You know, we were like the Seven Dwarfs and Snow White. You know, we were whistling a tune everywhere we were going. We were having such a good time. We blew up that street, and then I got to shoot at RoboCop, and then my buddy melted all over me, and that was a pretty hideous scene where he's in the acid vat, and he's been washed over with the acid vat, and the skin is melting off his face, and he's melting on my sleeve, and so when I said, "Don't touch me, man," I meant it. I did not want to be touched by that guy. But no, it was a very physical shoot, but we were having a good time, like kids on the playground.
On the DVD commentary, you said you and Kurtwood stood too close to an explosion. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, leaning that street that we blew up with our big guns. He and I were leaning up against his car, and we're doing a little dope up our nose, and one of our guys shoots his gun into a store, and the windows explode out, and we were a little too close, and we got window fragments at the side of our faces. Nothing really serious, but you know, not a fun thing. And but the nice thing about that was we got an extra stunt fee for it. You know, I think it was we got an extra $500-600 for getting shot in the face.
I read an interview that Orion Pictures did not make the making of RoboCop easy. Did the actors see any of that?
No, no. I'm sure that they were all over Paul all the time, you know, because they were trying to make it as cheaply as possible, and that's not. I think the original RoboCop was made for about $14 million, which is like a drop in the bucket today. And we didn't use any. We did a little bit of computer generated big, you know, the big robot machine. Ed 209, yeah. That was a little bit of computer generation, but everything else was all live stunt stuff, and I prefer that, by the way. These $100 million computer-generated extravaganzas are not my cup of tea.
Looking through your filmography from film and TV, if you could go back, what are some of your favorite characters that you played? Maybe some that you were most proud of?
Oh, most proud of, yeah. Well, I'm very proud of a film I did for Disney back in 1984 called The Journey of Natty Gann. And I played a Depression-era father in that one. And I get separated from my daughter, and then she has to travel cross country to find me. And she befriends a wolf. And I'm proud of that one. And the wolf, by the way, was great in that film. He was better than the other actors, really. He could hit his mark every time. And he was a sweetheart, and his name was Jed. And he was 3/4 wolf, and I don't know how that works. I think his dad was half, and his mother was full. Made him 3/4, yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point.
You talked about being in a lot of horror films. What brings you back to the genre, and are you a fan of the genre?
Yeah, I am. I did one called Jeepers Creepers 2. Remember that one? And I played the farmer in that, and the creeper took, and he's down the hall, by the way. Jonathan Breck. Want to go and say hello? He doesn't look at all like he does in the movie. But that makeup was so great as the creeper that standing just 3 feet away was pretty freaky. Just being that close, it looked that good. Looked very real. What was the question?
What keeps bringing you back to the genre, and are you a fan?
Yeah. I was going to say Jeepers Creepers 2. Yeah, it was the thing that intrigued me about that one was when I talked with the director about it, and he said he's gonna be like Captain Ahab. He's gonna be chasing the white whale. Only the creeper is the whale. And so we made a harpoon gun, and taking that Moby Dick metaphor further. And so I eventually killed the creeper with that harpoon gun. And then I made a film called The Dead End, which I thought was really a good story and a good cast, and again made very cheaply. And I think Digging Up the Marrow we made for about $200 or $300, it seems like. No, that cost $100,000. You can't make anything cheap these days. Even something that's cheap is going to cost at least $100,000. So, but I think it made its money back. But Adam Green, you know Adam Green, who did the Hatchet movies? He still owes me money. And I just, I follow him on Twitter, and I read his tweets, and so I tweet him right back, and I say, "Where's my money?" He still owes me $2,500 for Digging Up the Marrow. So, Adam, if you're listening, come on, buddy.
Is there any role that you turned down that you wish you didn't?
No, the only ones I've turned down are for these low-budget movies where they want me to be nude and do crazy things while I'm nude. I turn those down every time. Maybe one day, I don't know, I'll try one, I'm never going to say never, but that's not the kind of thing that I like to do.
One last question for me, and we'll turn it over to the audience. You appeared in Star Trek. Talk about appearing in those.
Yeah, Star Trek Generation and Star Trek Voyager, yeah. In Star Trek Generation, I played a Mintakan. In an episode called Who Watches the Watchers. And a Mintakan is kind of a lowercase Vulcan. He looks like a Vulcan, but he's not as smart as a Vulcan. In fact, he's pretty dim up here, kind of primitive. And I think that Picard is a god. And so I shoot him, of course, with my bow and arrow. And I get really upset when he bleeds. So. And then in Star Trek Voyager, I played Arturus. And his race are people with big heads. Two brains, actually, size heads. My head looked like a big shrimp in that one. And again, that was about a 3-hour makeup. Michael Westmore, one of the great makeup artists in Hollywood, did most of the Star Trek stuff. And it was fun, you know, to dress up like an alien and do those alien things.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Wise.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks.
When you played William Decker in Digging Up the Marrow,
Yeah.
did you go into it, like, did you find it challenging to try to convince the audience for the first 45 minutes that, these disfigured people lived in the marrow?
Yeah.
Did you see
Well,
that?
you know, the whole idea of that, it was a concept from the artist Alex Pardee and a lot of his artwork. And he came up with this whole underground world of people who are freaks, you know. I read what he wrote about some of his work, and he said every year there are thousands of people born who are different than we are. And they look different, and their body parts sometimes are different. And they're referred to, for good or bad, they're referred to as freaks. And a lot of them don't live to an adult age. They die earlier. And well, anyway, his whole idea was that all these freaks that are born every year go somewhere. And that's why we don't see them. Also, that there's a small people universe somewhere that we don't see, that they have towns of their own. Because, you know, you don't see small people around town. You don't see them at the drugstore or the grocery store too often. Sometimes you see them on television in some of the shows that you see, but and there are a lot of them. But where do they live? You know. So anyway, Alex's idea was that there are towns where the small people live, and there are underground towns where the freaks live. A whole world underneath the surface of the earth, and there are doorways to that world, and a lot of times it would be in cemeteries, and you could find a hole that would go down into the marrow, that he called it, and so that was his idea. And again, we made it for very little money, so you know the effects were what they were. They weren't that great, but there are some scary moments, and I enjoyed playing Decker. I think Adam Green was a little wary of me playing it because he felt that maybe it would be better to have someone totally unknown play that guy, so that it would seem more real. But why? Why when I could do it? You know what I mean? The guy that's unknown is not going to be as good as me. So, no. I don't talk that way normally.
All right, who else has it?
Hi.
Hi.
Enjoyed you in many of your roles, especially in Twin Peaks, but
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how much direction did David Lynch give you? Did he even give you cues on set to play Leland Palmer, or did he sort of let you go? Could you talk a little bit about his style as a director?
Yeah, he sort of lets you go. Yeah, he's very low key on the set. He likes to start out his day and on a happy note. He gets us all in there and on the set of the sound stage, and he gets us all in there wherever we're doing the scene. And he says stuff like, well, we're going to have a great day today. We're going to have a good time, Ray. The guy kills me. He does. And so he gets us in the right mood right away. And he keeps it that way the whole day. And when you do your scene with him, he doesn't tell you what to do. He will just tell you afterward if there's something that he didn't like about it. And then of course he's implying that he wants you to change it into something that he likes about it. But he's very gentle with the actors. He loves actors, and he has an uncanny way of saying just the right thing before you start to shoot a scene. And it can be, just a couple of words like, think music, Ray. Think music. Think music? Okay. So I do the scene, I'm thinking music, and by God, it turned everything, it just turned everything on. And he just has an uncanny way of doing that, and it happened over and over and over again. He's the most wonderful director that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a whole lot of them. Some really good and some not so good, but Malcolm McDowell is here tonight. We did a thing together called Cat People, and it was I played. I'm on the television set that the orangutan is watching. He's watching a soap opera, and I'm the soap actor on the television set at the zoo. And I forget why I even brought this up, but Malcolm's here tonight, and he's here, so I'm going to stop and see him after this, and we'll reminisce a little bit. We went to one of these shows in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and we visited the battlefield together. So Malcolm McDowell and I were walking through the Civil War battlefield. Funny thing. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about Firewalk with Me.
Yes.
That movie didn't really get a good rap.
No, they booed it at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah. Which is really crazy to me. I mean, I think over time it probably got better received.
Totally, yeah.
And when I saw it for the first time, it really opened my eyes to what watching a David Lynch movie really was like versus what it was like watching on TV. It brought out a darkness to the show. I guess what I wanted to ask was how you felt coming back to that when it was so much darker. And since the story revolves so much around Laura and her father, and how the rest of the crew seemed to look at the film, what the general mood was, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and at first I was surprised that we were going to do Firewalk with Me, really, and it almost didn't get done. They had to get the financing for it, and then it took a while to get Kyle MacLachlan on board, and they finally did. And but then they spiced it up with David Bowie and a few other little treats, and he was great, by the way, great fella, and I was sorry to see him pass. But Firewalk with Me was, like you said, it was initially not well received, especially by the crowd at the Cannes Film Festival. But in the last 25 years, it's grown considerably, and now, for me, I think it's one of David's. I think it's his masterpiece. I think if you want to see one thing that says David Lynch, I love Blue Velvet and I love a lot of the other stuff that he's done, but Firewalk with Me is what I would pick, because the everyday mundane stuff is his territory, but he peels away the layers and he gets underneath, and everything that complexity underneath that you don't see initially, you see superficially, but what goes on underneath it is his world. That's his netherworld. That's where he likes to explore. That's where he likes to go. you know, when you see these red ants on a tree eating the sap. They look just like a bunch of little insects, but if you follow them home, you find out what a red ant really is.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
So the Palmer family dinner scene in Firewood, I love it. So how soon did you find out about the not crying, not so nice Leland Palmer that all of us later found out and got horrified by? How early did you find out?
I never found out anything early.
Really?
Never. It was a eye-opening experience every week to see what Leland was going to have to go through in the next episode, and we never knew where the character was going. And I prayed to God that I wasn't the killer of my own daughter. I didn't want to be. The idea of killing my own daughter was anathema to me. I just had a baby daughter at the time. She was like 2 years old. And I looked at Cheryl Lee, who played Laura. By the way, she gave me her 4th grade picture. And I kept it in Leland's wallet the whole time I was making Twin Peaks. And I kept that wallet in my back pocket. Her picture. Anyway. Yeah, it was rough stuff.
Well, again, thank you for taking some time to go see Ray at his table. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ray. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I cleared some of that up for you. I probably didn't. I probably muddied the waters even more. But that's my job. I love this. Angelo Badalamenti, by the way, the composer. I got a story for them. May I? Yeah. Angelo said, you know, Ray, I got called by Paul McCartney to come over and do some music with him at the Apple Studio in London. So he went over to do some music with Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney told Angelo a story about McCartney was doing some new music, and he was invited by the Queen to Buckingham Palace to play some of his new music. And he went that evening, and he was in the reception line. The Queen's going down the line, and she finally stops with Paul McCartney, and she said, well, Mr. McCartney, I'm looking forward to hearing your music. He said, yes, Your Majesty, I'll be playing for you now. And she said, oh, no, not now. It's 5 minutes till 9. Twin Peaks is coming on. She watched that episode and then came down and Sir Paul McCartney played his music for the Queen of England. True story.